Marcin Tybura versus Greg Hardy takes place this weekend on the main card of UFC Fight Night Vegas 17, Thompson versus Neal, and I can't wait for this heavyweight bout kicking off the main card, the final card of the year. Hopefully it kicks off with a bang because that main card is amazing. In fact, the main card is so good that Anthony Pettis versus Alex Morono is now on the prelims. That's how good the main card is. I want to talk to you guys about Hardy versus Tybura though. This is the real big test of Greg Hardy's career. I know the Maurice Green fight was seen as a jump up in competition for Greg Hardy, but I think it was very obvious that Greg Hardy was going to go out there and do what he did. It did get a little bit hairy at times, because I don't know if you guys realize this, if you watch the fights with sound on, but Greg Hardy is breathing so heavily during any one of his fights if it goes past 2 minutes, which is very worrying to see at times, and it was quite worrying in the middle of that Maurice Green fight before he landed that like a lead uppercut kind of jab situation to Maurice Green, dropped him in the second round. Very good shot selection by Greg Hardy. I really like the performance. I just feel like the same problems are showing themselves in Greg Hardy's game, which is the cardio. I don't like the cardio of Greg Hardy in these bouts. I feel like other people in the heavyweight division that are a little bit more established, that have been 3 rounds before, that have done this so many times and have the experience advantage over you, are going to find a way to notice you breathing that heavily and turn it against you, which is why I'm picking Marcin Tybura to get the job done in this bout. Listen, I was very impressed with Greg Hardy against Yorgan De Castro. I know Yorgan De Castro had a broken foot past the first round of that fight and it could have looked different otherwise, and I know that Yorgan De Castro also just got grounded out by Carlos Felipe, who got grounded out by Sergey Spivak, who got grounded out by Marcin Tybura. This is the food chain of grappler of the heavyweight division we're talking about here. I liked Greg Hardy's performance against Yorgan De Castro. I thought he was patient. He used a lot of feints. He didn't overexert himself looking for a KO blow. I think he has to overexert himself to get the KO blow in the first round against Tybura, because if this goes past a round and a half, I think Tybura is going to get him to the canvas, get on top of him, and he's not going to let him up, even in that third round as well. I think we could see a finish by TKO ground and pound in the third round even. I think there's going to be a big upset here in terms of public perception of this fight, because I know the odds are very close, but Marcin Tybura, in my opinion, should be a hefty favourite here. I think he'll get the job done in the third round by finish. However, I acknowledge that Greg Hardy is a very dangerous man in this bout. The reason that I'm picking Marcin Tybura to win is because we've seen this game plan over and over and over again in Marcin Tybura's career, and he keeps doing it on people, and he keeps doing it on people, dare I say, that might be better grapplers than Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy has not been in the game for too long, and I know he's a very big guy for the division, and he's very strong, and that can save him in some areas. But in terms of technical grappling skill, Sergey Spivak, I would hedge my bets, has better understanding of grappling than Greg Hardy just based on experience. I would also hedge my bets on the fact that Maxim Grishin, 30-7, light heavyweight, outside the UFC for ages, been fighting great contenders back to back to back. In his old age, fair enough, but it's the heavyweight division. None of these guys are really young bucks, let's be real. Maxim Grishin tried to come out against Marcin Tybura. Tybura did the exact same thing to him again. Ground him up, took him down, got him to the canvas. He did it to Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak has done it to guys like Carlos Felipe, like Taito Iwasa in the division. Looked like he had no problem taking Taito Iwasa to the ground, but he didn't really have an answer to Marcin Tybura. Stuffed a couple of the takedowns, but as soon as Tybura got them, you're looking at 8 minutes 22 of top control that Tybura had in that fight. I like his chances here, boys. He's got great grappling. He's got a good chin as well, which goes a little bit unnoticed because I know we've seen him KO'd a couple of times in his career during the Shamil Abdurakhimov bout and the Augusto Sakai bout, and also the Derek Lewis bout as well, which is one that everyone remembers. What you don't remember about the Derek Lewis bout, however, is how he recovered so many times from being rocked in there to get on top of Derek Lewis, to establish good position on the ground, to look like he was going to get the job done over Derek Lewis in certain moments of that fight. Derek Lewis came back, rallied for the win in the third round, got the job done. He might have been winning the round anyway, or winning the fight anyway, but it was a close one, back and forth. We can all agree on that. However, I feel like Marcin Tybura has turned over a bit of a new leaf recently. He seems in a little bit better shape. He was in good shape when he started in the UFC. I remember he got a head kick finish over someone, which was Victor Pesta in the UFC. He's been around for a long time, since 2015, inside the UFC, or 2016. He's had a ton of fights, a ton of experience, and there seemed to be a time in his career, around the Struve win even, and also especially with the Shamil Abdurakhimov fight and the Augusto Sakai fight, where he ballooned out. He didn't look in good shape anymore. He looked like he packed on a ton of bad weight taken into those fights. Now it seems like he's trimming himself down again. He looked better against Sergey Spivak. He looked even better shape against Marcin Tybura. He looked good against Ben Rothwell as well and put on the best performance of his career so far, I would argue. So in my opinion, Marcin Tybura is not a 35-year-old slowing down. He's a 35-year-old who's still young in his career in a heavyweight division, that's turning things around for himself. I think he's going to keep going, get the job done against Greg Hardy. I acknowledge that Greg Hardy can get this one out of there in the first round and land that big blow. I just don't see him being able to do it effectively or educatedly. And I think whilst he's looking for that big blow in the first round to get Tybura out of there, because Hardy's team ain't no dummies. You know what I mean? They know that Marcin Tybura is going to go out there and try and wear down Hardy over the rounds. So I'm sure they're telling Greg Hardy, go out there and while you're on the feet in the first part of these rounds, really try and make a statement and get this one done. Don't overexert yourself. But other than go out there and cruise to a decision, which I think is a silly idea because eventually Tybura is going to overwhelm you, in my opinion, pushing you to the cage, landing his knees to the fire, landing his little short body shots. He loves total strikes against the cage. Does Marcin Tybura? He'll eventually get those takedowns. I think Greg Hardy's team is going to tell him to come out in the first round really switched on and look for that finish early, because I think it's his best chance of winning this bout. And I think whilst he's doing that, which Tybura knows he's going to do, Tybura is just going to shoot underneath big swinging shots while Greg Hardy's trying to TKO him. And I don't think he's going to hold on to a single leg like that idiot Juan Adams. On Greg Hardy's resume, we've seen certain guys take him to a decision and show him enough in the striking game to make Greg Hardy respect them enough to not want to go all out on them. Like we saw this against Ben Sassoli. I know it was overturned to a no contest, but it was basically a win for Greg Hardy. He used an inhaler in the corner, which is a crazy situation to even say, but he used an inhaler in the middle of the fight. He won the fight visually to everyone. I know it was scored a no contest, and rightfully so. That inhaler is not allowed, so score it a no contest all you want. But Ben Sassoli landed some decent shots on Greg Hardy, and it was enough to make Greg Hardy very hesitant about going in and exchanging with him again. And the same thing happened against Maurice Green in those first early rounds when Greg Hardy started to kind of take those rounds off. He had Green in trouble, and I think he sort of counted on the fact that he would win the round off of having Green in trouble, and then just sort of backed away a little bit because Green landed some good shots. And I don't think Hardy's going to want to run into shots against Tybura once Tybura establishes himself on the feet first. And we saw against Ben Rothwell, or Rothwell, as I'll pronounce it correctly. We saw against Ben Rothwell that Marcin Tybura can stay patient under fire, because Ben Rothwell came out in that round and swung for the fences in the first with brutal combinations. And that's Ben Rothwell we're talking about here, who took OSP to a decision and won it, and also took Blagor Yevanov to a decision, and some people thought he won that one as well. I will say this, Rothwell really put it on Marcin Tybura, and Marcin Tybura put a guard up. He tucked his chin down. He stayed patient in the storm and then waited for his moments to get back in there in the second and third round. I think Greg Hardy's going to land something good in the first. There's going to be a ton of craziness in the first round, and I think it's going to be a crazy round. I actually think Greg Hardy could go out there and get the job done in the first round. I think if Tybura takes Greg Hardy down once, Greg Hardy might have the strength to just get back up based on his size. But I think as those rounds go on, Tybura is going to wear him down against the cage, get him to the ground. Hardy's going to be breathing heavier and heavier, and ain't nobody passing that asthma pump through the cage. That ain't happening this time. You're going to be in there on your back with a big guy in Tybura on top of you with power, looking for a finish and looking to make a statement in the heavyweight division. I'd say either a 29-28 decision to Tybura if you trust Hardy not getting finished. In my opinion, Tybura knows the opportunity he has here. He's not just going to go for a decision. He's got all eyes on him versus Greg Hardy. I think he's going to look to make a statement and finish Greg Hardy in the third round that just won't have the same can-do attitude with his cardio that the guys like Marcin Tybura had and Sergey Spivak had to keep themselves out of getting finished. I think that Hardy's going to get done in the third round by TKO. I don't think it's going to be a devastating KO finish for Tybura with ground and pound. I think it's going to be like a Walt Harris, Alistair Overeem situation where it's kind of like, okay, Greg Hardy, you're gassed out. You aren't really defending yourself, and Tybura's on top of you with your back, smashing you a little bit. Not with big shots, but just enough shots to where the referee's going to say, defend yourself, get out of there. And then Hardy's not going to do it. And Tybura will get the TKO finish in the 3rd round. I picked Hardy to win. I think all of his fights so far in his career, other than the Alexander Volkov fight, which, I mean, you can't really pick him against Alexander Volkov, even though he did okay against Alexander Volkov. I think Volkov's got a lot better since then himself. I believe that Tybura is going to get this one done, and if he does get this one done, he is on to bigger and better things in that heavyweight division, because I think the winner of this one is going to get a big jump up. We are seeing the changing of the guard in the heavyweight division. Cyril Gane just did that to Junior Dos Santos, so now Junior Dos Santos might be going, but if Junior Dos Santos doesn't go, let's sacrifice him again one more time. See what happens. Who knows? But it looks like they're probably going to get rid of JDS. If they're getting rid of Yoel Romero, they'll get rid of JDS. But I'm looking at this heavyweight division right now, and I could see a matchup with a Walt Harris being made, like just to sort of take one of your stars forward, or not really. Walt Harris isn't really a star, but there's sort of a fan support behind him, and I could see them doing, if Greg Hardy wins, maybe a Walt Harris versus Greg Hardy matchup. However, Marcin Tybura is not ranked in the heavyweight division. Why is Marcin Tybura not ranked in the heavyweight division? That's interesting to me. I think he was momentarily for a short period of time at number 15. I think if he wins this one, you have to give him number 15. I know Andrei Arlovski beat Tanner Boser, and I know Andrei Arlovski also beat Ben Rothwell as well. I think if Tybura puts 4 in a row together, you might have to even slide Blagoy-Ivanov out of those rankings as well, because I know he had a closer fight than Tybura did with Sergey Spivak, but Blagoy-Ivanov hasn't really done anything. I meant Augusto Sakai, by the way, when I was talking about Blagoy-Ivanov. But, ranking position on the line, I just don't see Greg Hardy having the cardio to keep this up for 3 rounds. And we haven't seen the Hardy we saw on the Contender Series to tell me that he's going to go out there and KO Tybura in the 1st round. Tybura's got a good chin. It took volume against Spivak and some education against the cage. Wasn't in the best of shape back then. I think that was a different time in his career. Really starting to pick things up and put things together. Takes a lot of shots to put him down, and Rothwell landed a bunch of them on him, and they couldn't do anything to that chin, and eventually Tybura comes back in the 2nd and 3rd. I have this in Tybura's favour, and I'm very comfortable with it as well, because listen, Yorgan De Castro had 1 leg, man. 1 leg, and Hardy couldn't KO him, and didn't kind of want to KO him. I think he's going to be too hesitant. He's not going to pull the trigger the way he needs to. Tybura's going to throw a bunch of feints that's going to have him confused. He's had way more fights than Greg Hardy. I think he's had more UFC fights, I'd hazard a guess, than Greg Hardy has had fights. And I'll just count that up right now real quick. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 UFC fights so far. This is his most active turnaround of his career, and for a guy who's a little bit not physically Adonis style, I think it's a good sign to see someone make a quick turnaround, because they're more active, they're more switched on in that 1st round for a potential onslaught from Greg Hardy. I like it that he's gone right back into another training camp, because he is a bigger guy. I'm sure he likes to eat now and again, but it seems like he wants to stay in training camp, stay in shape. I think we're going to see the best Tybura ever, and he will get the job done against Greg Hardy. Thank you for watching the video. Sorry, Greg Hardy. I actually like Greg Hardy. I want him to win this one. I'm rooting for Greg Hardy to win for the purposes of the heavyweight division's future. I just think this is going to be too big of a jump too soon. I think they should have done Greg Hardy versus a guy along the lines of Todd Duffy next. Or someone just coming off a basic win in the heavyweight division that isn't really that good, but we'll give him to Greg Hardy for now. I think there should have been one more before we jumped Greg Hardy to the better guys, and in my opinion, arguably should be ranked guys of the heavyweight division in Marcin Tybura. He gets it done. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Goodbye. See you later. Yeah.